A faint streak of crimson light sliced across the sky, vanishing as swiftly as it had appeared, seemingly tearing through the void. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Su Zhong's gradually stiffening face. In his scarlet pupils, they could see the rapidly fading vitality and lingering fear. How is this possible? Blood trickled down from the center of Su Zhong's brow. His vision wavered as his world turned gray. Through his faltering sight, he saw the distant young man raising his palm. Even now, he found it hard to believe that Lin Dong had torn through the energy field he had crafted to break into the revolution stage, delivering a lethal blow. The energy field from before was such that even someone at the same peak of the perfect completion of the death mystique stage would struggle to penetrate it. Yet Lin Dong's attack shattered it with ease. What kind of attack was that? This guy still had some tricks up his sleeve? Darkness rapidly engulfed Su Zhong's sight. His body swayed before he finally crashed to the ground amidst the shocked gazes fixed upon him. So unwilling. With these last words resonating in his heart, Su Zhong's consciousness plunged into eternal darkness. And thus, a demon commander met his end. The entire Thunder Abyss mountain fell silent, the air thick with an atmosphere that not even the wind could disperse, mourning the fallen warrior. Su Zhong had fallen. Countless gazes focused on the collapsed figure, pupils seemingly dilating in this moment of shock. This demon commander of Thunder Abyss Mountain had been vanquished by the human youth known as Lin Dong? How could this happen? Some murmured, for he was one of the 8 great demon commanders in the beast combat domain. Though Su Zhong was not among the most distinguished of them, he was still a formidable figure, with few who could outmatch him. They could imagine the tremendous upheaval this news would cause when it spread across the beast combat domain. In the silence, Lin Dong slowly lowered his hand, his fingertips still dripping with fresh blood. His face was pale. The previous strike had drained him, integrating the power of 2 ancestral talismans along with his immense life force. The expenditure was terrifying, but Lin Dong had no alternative. He knew that even if Su Zhong were to consume his younger brother and succeed in the breakthrough, it would only have less than a 30% chance of success. But he dared not take that risk. If Su Zhong had succeeded today, the situation might have unfolded differently. Although it wouldn't have resulted in the demise of Lin Dong and his brother, their objectives would have been jeopardized. "Brother, are you all right?" Little Yin asked in alarm, noticing Lin Dong's pallor. Lin Dong shook his head slightly, about to speak when his expression suddenly turned icy. He swiftly raised his head to see a figure darting towards Su Zhong's corpse. "You're courting death," Lin Dong shouted coldly, his fingers poised to strike. The figure hesitated, evidently having witnessed Lin Dong's terrifying prowess earlier. This brief pause allowed Little Yin to react. With a roar, he charged with a fierce gust of wind, aimed directly at the figure. Boom! A violent force burst forth, forcing Little Yin back several steps. The figure revealed itself. It was Qin Shi. Humph! Lin Dong's eyes turned icy, summoning the devouring heavenly corpse to intercept Qin Shi. "Do you still want to avenge Su Zhong?" Lin Dong asked coldly, his gaze locked onto Qin Shi. Qin Shi chuckled dryly at Lin Dong's words, apprehension evident in his eyes. Su Zhong's fall had shaken him profoundly. His power was comparable to Su Zhong's, which meant Lin Dong was just as capable of killing him. Besides, the devouring heavenly corpse was a formidable opponent he'd rather not face. His involvement with Su Zhong was merely transactional, motivated by the latter's lucrative offer. With Su Zhong gone, that deal was void. It wasn't worth making an enemy of Lin Dong. "Lin Dong, my young friend, there's no need for such harsh words. Su Zhong and I weren't that close. I wouldn't risk avenging him." Qin Shi smiled, his gaze shifting to Su Zhong's body, eyes flickering. "How about a deal, young friend? Would you let me have Su Zhong's corpse?" Lin Dong narrowed his eyes, staring at Qin Shi, who faced him with sly cunning. "Sorry, I can't agree to that," Lin Dong replied with a faint smile. Su Zhong's body contained the other half of the bloodline that Little Yin needed, and although Su Zhong had refined it, Lin Dong had a way to extract it. Qin Shi's face twitched slightly at Lin Dong's words, laughing awkwardly. "Wouldn't you reconsider?" Could it be that Brother Qin Shi doesn't wish to befriend me? Lin Dong said with a teasing smile. Qin Shi's mouth twitched before he glanced at the devouring heavenly corpse less than 10 steps away, and then at little Yin, who was watching him vigilantly. Eventually, he relaxed, his voice somewhat dry. How could that be? Meeting Lin Dong in such circumstances is something I'm very pleased with. Lin Dong smiled, then waved his sleeve, and the heaven-burning cauldron flew out, absorbing Xia Zhong's corpse from the ground. Upon seeing this, Qin Shi sighed inwardly, disappointment flickering in his eyes. This expression caught Lin Dong's attention, and he found it strange. Could Qin Shi know about the half-inheritance blood within Xia Zhong? But being of the Lion clan, he couldn't perfectly absorb it anyway. As Xia Zhong's body vanished, the tense atmosphere over Thunder Abyss Mountain dissipated. Seeing this, Chun Tong and his men exchanged looks and then abruptly knelt on one knee. Behind them, several hesitant guards from Thunder Abyss Mountain followed suit, caught up in the influence of Chen Tong and his comrades' clear authority here. Please appoint General Yin as commander. The deep cry echoed across Thunder Abyss Mountain, prompting the guards to shout as well, their voices resounding like thunder through the skies. More soldiers watched the scene, slightly panicked. Was Thunder Abyss Mountain about to change hands? Mengshan and Sky Crocodile General were startled too, but with Xia Zhong's fall, they lost all their confidence and didn't dare to stop what was happening. Boom! Suddenly, a rumbling sound rose from below the mountain, and a menacing tide of steel engulfed the area with terrifying ferocity. It was the Tiger-Devouring Army. Please appoint General Yin as commander. The Tiger-Devouring Army halted at a short distance from the peak, then knelt on one knee in unison, their low growls echoing like tigers' roars. The overwhelming presence of the Tiger-Devouring Army spread, causing hesitant Thunder Abyss Mountain warriors to finally lower their heads and kneel across the wide landscape. Please appoint General Yin as commander. In the sky, leaders of various powers within Thunder Abyss Mountain's domain watched, understanding the situation clearly. With Xia Zhong fallen, little Yin was the most fitting to become the new demon commander. Accepting this unchangeable result, it was wise to establish good relations with this trustworthy demon commander to make their future smoother. Lin Dong, observing this grand scene, let a smile surface on his pale face. As a human, no matter how powerful, the people of Thunder Abyss Mountain would struggle to acknowledge him as the new demon commander, and that suited him because it wasn't a role he desired. If little Yin could take charge, it would be an ideal outcome. Thus, Lin Dong looked at little Yin with a nod. Little Yin hesitated but agreed. Thunder Abyss Mountain was a formidable force, and gaining control could be advantageous for them. If they ever needed to reclaim the Eastern Mystery region, this could be a powerful asset. In the gaze of many, little Yin moved, soaring into the sky, his tiger eyes sweeping over the scene before landing on Mengshan and Sky Crocodile General, speaking in a deep voice, "Do you submit?" Mengshan and Sky Crocodile General's faces changed slightly as countless sharp gazes surrounded them. After much hesitation, they knelt on one knee, their spirit to resist utterly gone. Seeing this, little Yin nodded, turning his gaze to the last one standing, Hua Miao. If you don't want to stay in Thunder Abyss Mountain, you may leave. Himph, so imposing. Hua Miao looked at little Yan's robust figure, snorted softly, but blushed gradually, and eventually knelt on one knee without her usual defiance. A surprise to Chen Tong and the others since she never behaved so compliantly even when Xia Zhong took her in. At that moment, Thunder Abyss Mountain lost all its resistance. Little Yin stood in the sky, surveying with his tiger eyes, finally making a commanding sweep of his arm, exuding authority. His deep voice echoed across Thunder Abyss Mountain. Everything within Thunder Abyss Mountain remains as it is. Maintain the previous positions, except the role of Demon Commander. Congratulations to Commander Yin. Countless individuals bowed their heads, respectful and synchronized cry reverberating powerfully through heaven and earth. The events that transpired on Thunder Abyss Mountain spread through the entire beast combat domain with terrifying speed in just 3 days. The sensation it caused was not surprising to anyone. The entire domain was in an uproar. The fall of a demon commander was far from ordinary in the beast combat domain. Although Su Zhong wasn't the most outstanding among the 8 demon commanders, he was still a formidable force. Many strong challengers had tried over the years to claim his title, but they all ended up as mere footnotes under the aura of his command, only reinforcing his formidable reputation. Yet now, this figure who had stood tall in the beast combat domain for over a decade had suddenly fallen. Moreover, the one who defeated him wasn't a local powerhouse, but a human. This news inevitably caused quite a stir. Many powerful figures felt somewhat indignant for a human to dare act so audaciously in the beast combat domain. However, this time, unlike when Lin Dong defeated Chao Ying, fewer strong contenders sought to confront him. After all, a warrior capable of slaying a demon commander was rare as a phoenix's feather in the domain. Naturally, such a significant event drew the attention of the major powers within the beast combat domain, some even mightier than Thunder Abyss Mountain. Though some were eager to move, they ultimately held back. The new demon commander of Thunder Abyss Mountain was not the human, but another formidable beast warrior. Lin Dong's decision to appoint Little Yin as the new demon commander was wise. Although Lin Dong had considerable power, he had not reached the level where he could ignore all rivals. Therefore, he stayed low profile because he understood that if he took the position himself, not only would the many powerhouses of Thunder Abyss Mountain refuse to submit, but other demon commanders might launch an attack the very next day. Despite this, Thunder Abyss Mountain was in the spotlight. Fortunately, the transition of command brought no major upheaval. The mountain remained as tranquil as ever, with the only change being the demon commander's identity. Over time, those keenly watching Thunder Abyss Mountain began to withdraw their scrutiny, lulled by the normalcy. Only the insiders knew that storms often gathered stealthily in silence. In the demon domain, especially the chaotic beast combat domain, maintaining peace was no easy task. At Thunder Abyss Mountain, in a secluded area, Lin Dong sat cross-legged atop a green stone. Vigorous primordial energy swirled around him, converting into gaseous dragons that entered his nostrils with each breath. Under this energy's infusion, Lin Dong's aura grew more serene. Yet underneath lay an ocean of boundless power. A sound of rushing wind came from afar, and soon, a familiar, robust figure appeared. Lin Dong opened his eyes slightly, looking at the arriving Little Yin. Over time, Little Yin had gradually taken control of Thunder Abyss Mountain. His previously fierce countenance now bore a hint of authority. It seems Thunder Abyss Mountain has settled down now? Lin Dong smiled at Little Yin. Despite Su Zhong's fall, most of the mountain's generals chose to submit. Yet some strong figures remained loyal to Su Zhong, causing minor unrest over 10 days. However, Little Yin quickly quelled these disturbances with decisive methods, and word spread little of it. With Chen Tong and others' support, Little Yin was steadily gaining full control of Thunder Abyss Mountain. Over the past year, Little Yin's reputation here was second only to Su Zhong. Now with Su Zhong's fall, Little Yin's ascension felt natural. In the demon domain, where power reigned supreme, a leader weaker than their subordinates being replaced was expected. Yes, Little Yin nodded and grinned. Meng Shan and Sky Crocodile General might have rebellious thoughts, but for now, they dare not act. I'll have Chen Tong keep an eye on them. If they make a move, I'll eliminate them. Lin Dong nodded slowly. Meng Shan and the general were like bad apples. They posed some trouble but couldn't be openly dealt with. The best course was to let them reveal themselves in due time. Of course, Lin Dong wasn't worried about any waves they might make. How is Big Brother's injury? Little Yin asked, looking at Lin Dong. The latter had completely recovered during this time of rest and was no longer as weak as before. He's fine now. Lin Dong shook his head and then glanced down at his fingers. This power was something he could only balance after reaching the perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage, utilizing his blood essence and the power of the Ancestral Stone to manage the forces of the Thunder Ancestral Talisman and the Devouring Ancestral Talisman. Clearly, the intensity of such attacks was frightening. The combined force of the two Ancestral Talismans was not something to be taken lightly. However, the toll it took on one's body was substantial. But you, although your strength is not weak, among the current 8 demon commanders, you might be the weakest, Lin Dong said to Little Yin. Little Yin nodded. Despite his mutated constitution, he was still lacking in experience compared to those old monsters. This gap could only be bridged with other methods, such as inheritance blood essence. Lin Dong smiled at the look in Little Yan's eyes, then waved his sleeve. The heaven-burning cauldron appeared and expanded rapidly. He moved into the cauldron with a swift motion. Come with me. It's time to retrieve that inheritance blood essence. Inside the heaven-burning cauldron, a massive, dimly lit tiger corpse floated, emanating a thick, bloody scent. As Su Zhong's life force completely faded, his body reverted to its original form. Hovering in midair, Lin Dong looked at the dim tiger's corpse with narrowed eyes. Big brother, since Su Zhong has refined the inheritance blood essence, are you really able to extract it? Little Yin asked as he walked in, eyeing the tiger's corpse. For others, it might be difficult. Lin Dong chuckled, clenching his hand to summon a black vortex filled with a powerful devouring force. Have you forgotten about my devouring ancestral talisman? As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Dong flicked his finger, sending the black vortex whirling out, hovering above the dim tiger's body. The devouring force spread out like a giant mouth, gradually swallowing the tiger whole. The dim tiger vanished into the black hole, disappearing completely within half an hour, leaving not a trace of flesh or bone behind. Buzz. When the dim tiger had been fully consumed, the black hole shuddered violently, and mighty, pure energy beams shot forth from it, like a rising sun radiating beams of light. Watching this scene, Lin Dong clenched his hand, transforming the black vortex back into a black light that returned to his body. In midair, a blood-colored orb about the size of a person's head appeared. Inside the orb, Lin Dong sensed an incredibly pure energy fluctuation. Patterns wove across the orb's surface, forming a roaring blood tiger. It really is the other half of the inheritance blood essence. Little Yan's excitement was evident as he gazed at the blood-colored orb. Lin Dong smiled slightly. Even though the inheritance blood essence had been refined by Su Zhong, since it was integrated into his flesh, Lin Dong's devouring of his flesh allowed these essence energies to re-emerge. With the devouring ancestral talisman's power, as long as Su Zhong's remaining energy hadn't fully merged with the inheritance blood essence, Lin Dong had a way. Absorb this half of the inheritance blood essence, and you should have a good chance of reaching the perfect completion of the death mystique stage. As he spoke, Lin Dong clicked his tongue, reflecting on his arduous path of cultivation. At this age, he was only at the initial level of the death mystique stage. Yet Little Yin was on the brink of achieving perfect completion. Though it was partly due to his mutated constitution, it still left a hint of imbalance in the heart. However, considering his combat prowess beyond his stage, Lin Dong felt some comfort. At least it was a compensation. Lin Dong's voice trailed off, and with a wave of his sleeve, the blood orb descended, caught by Little Yin. Just as he began to refine it, a surprised sound escaped his lips. Lin Dong looked up at Little Yin. Holding the blood orb, Little Yin gently squeezed it, and a beam of blood-colored light rose, dispersing into a palm-sized, triangular, ancient copper piece. The copper was covered with dark greenish grime indicative of age, and on one corner of the piece, two ancient characters could faintly be seen. Treasury? Lin Dong came over for a look, frowning. What was this? Little Yin rubbed the ancient copper, contemplating. After a long pause, he firmly slapped the piece, his tiger eyes shining brightly at Lin Dong. Big brother. Oh. Lin Dong raised an eyebrow. Little Yin grinned. Big brother. Have you heard of the ancient divine relic treasury? Ancient divine relic treasury? Lin Dong squinted slightly. He was certainly no stranger to ancient divine relics. The ancestral stone within him ranked second on the divine relic list, and on that day, Qingji had summoned the 6th-ranked Destruction Emperor disc from the relic list to defeat the Demon King. These ancient divine relics possessed immense power, and in the hands of a formidable expert, they could unleash astonishing might, sometimes allowing the wielder to defeat enemies way above their level. Every relic sparked fierce competition among powerful fighters. So what was the situation with this ancient divine relic treasury now? From what I know, in the beast combat domain, There's an ancient treasury of divine relics passed down through the ages, Little Yin explained. In that treasury, there are many ancient divine relics, each of immense power. Little Yin laughed. The treasury is protected by the 8 demon commander forces of the beast combat domain. It opens every 3 years, and during that time, the entire domain becomes a hotspot. Even outside forces try to get a share. But, Little Yin paused. It seems not everyone can obtain a divine relic. The last time the treasury opened, only a few groups managed to acquire one each. And among those relics, the most formidable appears to be one named 9 Heavens Mountain Range, ranked 32nd on the relic list. 9 Heavens Mountain Range. Lin Dong murmured. He was quite interested in such ancient relics. Although the ancestral stone in his possession had an outrageously high ranking, its damage from the ancient war made it difficult to greatly enhance Lin Dong's fighting capability. Mostly, it helped maintain a balance between the 2 ancestral talismans within him. When the ancient divine relic treasury opens, can anyone take the relics? Lin Dong asked. Not possible. Little Yin shook his head, then raised an old cyan bronze shard in his hand. If I'm not mistaken, this should be a well-spread ancient god token among the major forces in the beast combat domain. Ancient god token? Lin Dong frowned. The ancient divine relic treasury is quite mysterious, with a peculiar power within. To harness that power and claim a relic, one must rely on this ancient god token. Each ancient god token can only claim one relic every time the treasury opens. To think it requires this to claim relics? Lin Dong was a bit surprised. He took the ancient triangular bronze fragment from Little Yin and weighed it lightly. A peculiar heavy sensation emanated from it. What did Su Zhong obtain when the treasury opened last time? Why hasn't he used it? Lin Dong asked, puzzled. If Su Zhong had such a powerful relic, defeating him would have been much more challenging. Little Yan's expression turned odd, because he turned over the relics he acquired. Turned over? Lin Dong was taken aback. Su Zhong was one of the 8 demon commanders, yet he had to surrender the relics he obtained? To whom? Big brother, the beast combat domain has 8 demon commanders, but there's a vast gap in strength among them. Su Zhong only rose to power in recent years, but among the 8, there are 3 grand demon commanders who have stood in the domain for over a century. In truth, they are the most formidable in the beast combat domain. And even Su Zhong had to rely on one of them, Little Yin explained. Su Zhong was dependent on the Heavenly Dragon Demon Commander among the 3 Grand Demon Commanders, and that's why he handed over the relics he obtained from the treasury. Heavenly Dragon Demon Commander, Lin Dong repeated, frowning. Could this Grand Demon Commander be from the Dragon Clan? Tisich, just an 8-winged flying dragon with a trace of dragon blood. Calling itself Heavenly Dragon is quite audacious. Little Yin scoffed. If Su Zhong had lost to someone from outside Thunder Abyss Mountain, the Heavenly Dragon Demon Commander might have acted. But even so, it's only a matter of time before he comes to us, Little Yin said, worry flickering in his eyes. Is the Heavenly Dragon Demon Commander very strong? Lin Dong asked. Yes, at the revolution stage, Little Yin replied with a nod. Lin Dong pressed his lips together, feeling significant pressure. Although Su Zhong was said to be infinitely close to the revolution stage, the gap remained vast. Otherwise, he wouldn't choose to rely on the Heavenly Dragon Demon Commander. Generally speaking, those under the command of the Heavenly Dragon Demon Commander must pay a price. Su Zhong was required to hand over artifacts obtained from the ancient divine relic treasury 3 times before he could keep them for himself, Little Yin said with a grin. The ancient divine relic treasury opens every 3 years, meaning Su Zhong had to serve the Heavenly Dragon Demon Commander for nearly a decade. It seems he barely made it, but unfortunately, he won't be able to enjoy those artifacts now. Lin Dong raised the copper piece in his hand and asked, how many of these ancient god tokens are there in total? As far as I know, there are 13, Little Yin replied. Among the 8 major demon commanders, the 3 great demon commanders hold 6. The other 5 each hold 1, and the remaining 2 are controlled by 2 formidable forces in the beast combat domain. They're not as strong as the demon commanders, but they're not to be underestimated. So, each time the ancient divine relic treasury opens, 13 artifacts are revealed? Lin Dong was surprised by how powerful the treasury was. Just one artifact could spark many conflicts, let alone 13 appearing at once. These common artifacts aren't that extraordinary compared to the ones on the artifact ranking list. They aren't much stronger than your Thunder Emperor's staff. A voice suddenly sounded in Lin Dong's mind. It was Yin, the being ranked second on the ancient divine artifact ranking. Lin Dong was a bit stung by Yan's words and replied with some frustration in his heart, "Too bad this second-ranked artifact in my possession hasn't been of much use." Ahem. Yin coughed, acknowledging that over the years, it hadn't contributed much in direct combat due to its severe damage. Nonetheless, it wouldn't hurt to visit the ancient divine relic treasury. While most artifacts inside aren't exceptional, the treasury itself is quite a remarkable artifact. You mean, the artifact is the treasury itself? Lin Dong was taken aback. That was an artifact? If I'm not mistaken, it should be the Celestial Profound Hall, ranked 10th on the Ancient Divine Artifact list, Yin answered. Celestial Profound Hall? Lin Dong asked with confusion. It was crafted by my former master. As you know, to wage a large-scale war against the alien demons, a lot of equipment is required. The Celestial Profound Hall is a super artifact capable of autonomously crafting artifacts. By simply placing materials inside, it can create equipment to arm an army, achieving super combat strength and quantity. Of course, artifacts mass-produced by it aren't comparable to those on the artifact ranking list, but their sheer number can't be overlooked. Besides its crafting ability, the Celestial Profound Hall also possesses sealing power. If fully activated, it can even trap an alien demon king. It played an indelible role in the great battle between heaven and earth. An artifact capable of creating others on its own. Lin Dong was stunned. The artifact treasury, or rather, the Celestial Profound Hall, was incredibly formidable. You could try to acquire it. If you succeed, it would be a tremendous boost for you. Lin Dong's eyes gleamed with interest. Beyond the crafting power, the ability of the Celestial Profound Hall to seal an alien demon king was enticing, though he knew achieving that step would be difficult for him at present. When will the treasury open next? Lin Dong asked Little Yin, looking up. In about 2 or 3 months, Little Yin calculated. I now realize why Qin Shi wanted Su Zhong's body. He coveted the ancient god token inside him. This way, during the treasury's next opening, he could claim 2 artifacts, submitting one and keeping another for himself, Little Yin concluded, clicking his tongue. Lin Dong nodded slightly, having already suspected Qin Shi's strange behavior was due to this. Are you interested in the treasury, big brother? Little Yin asked. If we could secure 1 or 2 artifacts, it would definitely benefit us, Lin Dong said with a smile. He then waved his hand and added, but before that, you must refine the inherited blood. Otherwise, we won't stand a chance against those fierce competitors. Little Yin nodded heavily, understanding the challenges ahead. Many powerful figures had their sights set on the ancient divine relic treasury, and getting a share of it would be no simple task. With a wave of Lin Dong's sleeve, the 2 of them exited the heaven-burning cauldron. Having received the inherited blood essence, Little Yin didn't linger and quickly departed to refine it in seclusion. Watching his hurried departure, Lin Dong smiled slightly and gently touched the ancient god token in his hand. The divine relic treasury. I'm quite interested in you. After Little Yin obtained the other half of the inherited blood essence, he immediately chose to enter seclusion for refinement, leaving the matters of Thunder Abyss Mountain in Lin Dong's hands. This gave Lin Dong somewhat of a headache, as he lacked the organizational skills of Tang Xinlian to orderly manage such a vast force. However, he was relieved to find that Thunder Abyss Mountain remained stable despite changing leadership. With the support of Qin Tong and others, occasional disturbances were nothing too troublesome. Seeing the stability at Thunder Abyss Mountain, Lin Dong began to focus on his training. Although he had stepped into the perfect completion of the Death Mystique stage, this level was still slightly lacking against some of his adversaries. Although he could use various techniques to bridge this gap in combat prowess, the importance of intrinsic power could not be overlooked. To enhance his strength, Lin Dong decided to work on his spiritual energy, an area where he possessed a talent that amazed both Lien Yin and Little Mink. In normal times, he often concentrated on cultivating primordial energy, which left his spiritual energy somewhat neglected. Although it occasionally surged due to external factors, its growth was not as stable as the gradual progression of primordial energy. Currently, Lin Dong's spiritual energy was at the peak of the small completion of the Immortal Talisman Master stage. Advancing further would allow him to reach the great completion of Immortal Talisman Master, equating his strength to a perfect completion death mystique stage expert, thereby combining both to unleash formidable power. However, advancing his spiritual energy was no easy feat yet. Just as Lin Dong was troubled by this, the elusive Yin surprisingly appeared to offer some assistance. In a massive hall dedicated to cultivation at Thunder Abyss Mountain, Lin Dong sat cross-legged on a stone platform. Below him, Chun Tong respectfully presented 10 cosmic bags with both hands. Master Lin Dong, each cosmic bag contains 10 million profound primordial pills. If you find it insufficient, I can fetch more from the treasury. While speaking, Chun Tong felt a twinge of pain. Although Thunder Abyss Mountain was wealthy, releasing 1 billion profound primordial pills at once still pained the man managing their finances. Hee, this will suffice for now. Thank you, Brother Chun Tong. Lin Dong grinned, and with a wave, the cosmic bags fell into his hand. With little Yin in control of Thunder Abyss Mountain, Lin Dong inherited the vast resources of this great power. Without it, gathering 1 billion profound primordial pills would have been quite challenging. Hearing Lin Dong's words, Chun Tong quietly sighed in relief, then took his leave, thinking that the Thunder Abyss Mountain troops might need to secure more resources, lest the treasury be entirely exhausted by Lin Dong's demands. As he watched Chun Tong depart, Lin Dong smiled, asking, "Now that you have the profound primordial pills, what's the next step?" A white light emerged from within Lin Dong, transforming into a figure as Yin took the 10 cosmic bags, nodding. "Do you remember using the ancestral stone to train your spiritual energy a long time ago?" Lin Dong was taken aback, then nodded with a sigh. At that time, he was likely honing his skills within the Great Yin Dynasty, a rather distant memory. The ancestral stone indeed has the capability to refine spiritual energy. However, you didn't know how to use it back then. Moreover, your weak spiritual energy wouldn't have endured that kind of tempering, so I never mentioned it. But now, it's barely feasible, Yin said. Even though Yin was in a dormant state back then, it sensed Lin Dong's rudimentary and almost unbearable use of the ancestral stone. My master cultivated both primordial and spiritual energy to the highest levels. Lin Dong was quite surprised. He hadn't anticipated that even the most powerful being from ancient times to now would also walk this dual cultivation path. This approach, in fact, wasn't particularly rare. Many strong individuals dabbled in these two types of power, although they invariably favored one as primary and the other as secondary. Even Lin Dong himself leaned more towards cultivating primordial energy, with spiritual energy being somewhat neglected by comparison. Both these powers are incredibly strong, but when housed within a single body, there inevitably emerges a hierarchy. Back then, my existence maintained the balance of my master's two main powers within him, although later on, as my master gradually reached a level beyond the world, he no longer needed me to keep that balance. But before that, my role was indispensable. In today's world, with the re-emergence of the alien demon, no one knows if another great war of heavens and earth might erupt. Therefore, you must strive to enhance your strength. To truly counter the invasion of the alien demon clan, we must have a second ancestral talisman master. Yin looked at Lin Dong, his expression remarkably solemn. It was the first time Lin Dong had seen Yin so serious. He chuckled wryly. "You're giving me too much credit. While I'm confident in myself to become a second ancestral talisman master, surely the Ice Lord stands a better chance than me, right? I know your little girlfriend is the reincarnation of the Ice Lord." Yin glanced at Lin Dong. "I also know. My master even once said that the Ice Lord could possibly reach his level. But the ancestral talisman chose you." "What do you mean?" Lin Dong's eyebrows furrowed slightly. "The ancestral talismans are the most powerful divine objects in this world, possessing their own intelligence. In a sense, they cannot coexist within a single person. The devouring ancestral talisman can, Lin Dong reminded. True, the devouring ancestral talisman is the most accommodating among the 8 great ancestral talismans, but you must understand, not even the master of devouring could successfully refine a second ancestral talisman. After the master of devouring, there were other wielders of the devouring ancestral talisman, but similarly, none of them, unlike you, possessed a second ancestral talisman. It wasn't beyond their capability to find a second ancestral talisman. You mean? Lin Dong narrowed his eyes slightly. I was able to refine the Thunder ancestral talisman, and it has nothing to do with the devouring ancestral talisman? This seemed absurd to Lin Dong, for he had never felt this supposed affinity. When he refined the Thunder ancestral talisman, he nearly got struck to death. It's related, but not the main reason. The primary reason is that you have a kind of affinity with the ancestral talismans, which is why they chose you. Yan's eyes were locked intently on Lin Dong. This kind of affinity has only appeared before in my master since ancient times. Lin Dong was taken aback, and his scalp tingled a little as he said, "You better not tell me that I am the reincarnation of the ancestral talisman master." He couldn't accept that idea. He was Lin Dong, with a consciousness fully his own, and he did not wish for anything else to be mixed in. If that were the case, it would be ideal. Yin seemed to smile bitterly. My master burned through reincarnation and sealed the dimensional rift. He has completely vanished from this world and has no opportunity for reincarnation. Lin Dong finally breathed a sigh of relief, feeling his back dampened with sweat. He didn't feel any special affinity, but knew that reaching where he was today had involved too many brushes with death. But it does mean you have great potential to become the second ancestral talisman master. An ancestral talisman doesn't choose its bearer randomly. Yin looked at Lin Dong with a somewhat curious expression. For me, maybe that's a bit far off, Lin Dong said helplessly. Such talk seemed beyond his reach. Yin neither confirmed nor denied it, then shrugged. Well, maybe it is a bit too early to discuss this with you. Let's first deal with your spiritual energy problem. With a wave of his hand, 10 cosmic bags flew up, releasing vast pill rivers composed of profound primordial pills that roared out like giant dragons, coiling within the grand hall. Boom! 1 billion profound primordial pills gathered, generating a terrifying level of energy, with the energy currents creating a rushing water sound and vast, overwhelming waves spreading out. Yin floated in midair, his hands rapidly forming seals, and with a low shout, those 10 pill rivers collided violently. Amid the sweeping waves and astonishing energy fluctuations, a 1,000-foot-tall colossal object was gradually taking shape. Yin stood suspended in midair, gazing at the enormous disk of light. Then, with a slightly mischievous smile directed at Lin Dong, he made a gesture inviting him forward. This was a place my master once used to train his disciples in spiritual energy. Welcome. You are the 9th person to ever reach this place. What is this? Lin Dong inquired anxiously, sensing dangerous fluctuations from the peculiar, massive disk. Yin chuckled, his nonchalant tone sending shivers down Lin Dong's spine.